Back at Padric's, Rook was the first through the old-fashioned bar doors, shoving them aside with such force that they snapped back against the wall. He ignored the stares, ignored the confusion of the patrons. His friends kept pace with ease. While none actually marched with drawn weapons, they all had them within reach. If Padric was in league with the one who had just tried to murder them, they wouldn't let him get away. Rook found the inn's proprietor exactly where he'd been the day before, tinkering with the intricate parts of a disassembled flintlock pistol. "Oh, hey!" He looked up, eyes flicking from Rook to the others just behind him. "You guys go to a bonfire or something? You smell awful." He leaned forward, pointing at a little door next to the stairs. "We got hot water in the showers, you know. No need to stink up the whole place." "Funny you should mention it." Remy hopped up onto the stool beside Rook, right in front of the disassembled pistol. She casually swept her hand across the table, sending the tools and delicate clockwork clattering to the floor behind the counter. "Hey!" Padric raised his hands defensively. "You got something stuck up your ass, Moretti?" "She doesn't." Nightingale didn't sit, but she did poke up near the bar just beside Remy. Her arms and shoulders were covered in small cuts from the glass window, and Nightingale's hair was messily pulled to one side. She kept her voice very low, barely above a whisper. "But a friend of yours did just nearly barbecue us. She's a little peeved. We all are, really." To his credit, Padric didn't try to run, though one of his hands did briefly twitch towards the bar. "I don't know what you could be talking about." Remy leaned across the bar towards Padric, her wings wide behind her. "My father's head information broker exploded today." "We were in the basement investigating when we saw that friend of yours." Rook kept his voice as low as the others, his eyes flicking up to the mirror to make sure there wasn't anyone sneaking up on them. "Aisling lit the place up with us still inside." "Either you cooperate with us, or I'll see if my cousin Grace is interested in learning about Aisling trying to cook us alive." Zeke leaned casually against the bar as he spoke, puffing a great big cloud towards Padric as he spoke. Padric's shoulders slumped. "I can't believe she actually did it." He slipped a flask out from his belt and tossed the whole thing back. He didn't set it down again until it was empty. "Look, I don't want to talk about this here." He leaned his flask towards the single opening in the bar, leading back to the kitchen. "We can talk in the back." He led them away from the sound of drinking and song, away from the clinking glasses and happy voices. They followed Padric through the kitchen and into another room tucked against the back wall. Rook's eyes went wide as he took in the whole space. It looked like an entire blacksmith shop had been squeezed into a fraction of the space. High windows were open all along one wall, letting in a steady stream of cool night air. It was barely enough to stop him from sweating, what with the unshielded coals of a burning forge. There was an anvil, too, and a wheel, and a sturdy workbench littered with tools. Half-forged weapons hung from hooks all around the ceiling, low enough that Rook almost put his eye out with an unfinished dagger. The others were all short enough that they weren't in danger, though. Zeke eyed the weapons warily. "Look." Padric faced them again, hopping up onto his workbench. "I'll answer your questions. Just don't get the authorities. It would probably do more harm than good anyway." "We'll be the judge of that." Nightingale folded her arms, glowering up at him. "What did you mean she really did it? Was Aisling the one who murdered the informant?" Padric sighed. "I tried to talk her out of it. The Black Hand might be criminals, but they don't deserve what she was planning on doing to them." "You knew this was going to happen? Was that what you were arguing about this morning?" Nightingale glanced back to see that Rook was glowering. "No, I didn't think she actually was going to go through with it. I backed out. I thought that would be the end of it." Padric lowered his voice a little. "You say the guy exploded? She must have gotten the damn thing after all." "She found the hegemonics, you mean? An artifact of spontaneous combustion," Rook said. Padric jerked, and there was no hiding the recognition clear in his eyes. "You know about—" He shook his head. "It's worse. The hegemonics can draw down exalted espers." "You mean—" Even Remy was taken aback. "Yes," Padric said. "Demigods, demons, worse. Stuff nobody should be messing with. I bet Aisling used the hegemonics when she was caught trying to steal it. Poor bastard at the estate probably died before he even felt a thing. Rook was putting the pieces together. So you and Aisling were going to work together to steal this artifact? Why? Padric didn't answer for a long time. He glanced over to Remy, and the words came slowly. Aisling lost her dad. The Black Hand. Aren't murderers! Remy shouted at him. Spies. Maybe smugglers, but not assassins. My father wouldn't do that. Padric paled. You don't know your dad very well, do you? Remy looked down at her singed shoes, but Padric was right. She didn't really know her father. He'd only been her father for 3 years now. She didn't even know he existed before coming to Madara. But he seemed to care about her, and she liked that feeling, being loved. Padric must have seen the look on her face and moved on. Look, the details aren't important right now, all right? The point is, Aisling's dad was killed. She blames the Black Hand and Malik. As for me, well, he looked down away from Remy and Zeke. I wanted to say that it's because I'm sick of corruption, sick of back alley deals and troublemakers vanishing in the night. Really, I just care about her. I don't want to see her throw her life away over revenge. So why steal such a dangerous artifact? Rook repeated his question. Padric paused before speaking. I found out about it from a patron. I was hoping that if we stole the hegemonics, it would be enough proof to Balthazar that Malik was up to something that needed investigation here in Romstead, and we could get real justice for Aisling. You were trying to get my dad arrested for peddling dark artifacts? Remy blurted. Padric only shrugged. It isn't just your dad, Remy. This goes beyond him. The Black Hand has weaseled themselves deep within Alinia's aristocracies. Remy looked furious. She moved closer to Padric and looked like she was about to scream, but Nightingale cut her off. But you changed your mind, Nightingale offered. You didn't help Aisling steal the hegemonics. Why? Because I realized Aisling couldn't just be happy with that. She wanted revenge. She wanted to kill Malik, to hurt people. So I backed out. The end didn't really justify the means anymore. Padric rose again, and he no longer looked nervous as he looked between them. This whole mess is at least a little my fault. I couldn't stop Aisling, and frankly, I didn't think she'd go forward with it. That means I've got to help you bring her in. Get that artifact back before the hegemonics gets used again. Really? Nightingale relaxed a little. Yeah, Padric repeated, nodding back towards the kitchen. But not tonight. Aisling isn't going to come easy. Everything's on me. Even our bathhouse. Get clean, get fed, get rested. We can tackle this whole mess in the morning. Rook stared, searching for deception in Padric's eyes, but he didn't find any. All right, Rook extended a hand. But in the morning, you give us everything we need to find her. I want your word. Padric didn't hesitate, taking Rook's hand with a sturdy grip. I swear it on my inn and also my life. Tomorrow. Then he looked towards Nightingale. Also, you have some glass in your hair. Nightingale ruffled her long hair, sending small bits of glass all over the countertop. Thanks, she said, rubbing at her arms. This is bullshit, Remy scoffed. I'm not going to help you put my dad in prison. With that, Remy turned on her heels and stormed out of the small kitchen. Rook and Zeke shared a worried look, but Nightingale was the first to move after her. I'll talk to her. Nightingale spun as she moved. Thanks for the free food and beer, Padric. Nightingale found her friend a few moments later. She'd already buried herself in the corner with a pint of ale. Hey, Nightingale said, scooting into the small booth beside Remy. She waved her hand to get herself something to drink, and then turned to give Remy all the attention she felt she needed. He's the only family I have left, Remy said softly. All of you have close friends, brothers, sisters, or 2 parents, but Malik is the only family I have now. Nightingale only nodded and listened as Remy continued. I know he's not a good person, but he's good to me. Remy took a long gulp from her beer. Isn't that good enough? Nightingale still didn't say anything. I mean, plenty of people hate Balthazar. He's not a good person. Nightingale raised an eyebrow and took her drink as a waitress brought it by. She took a sip and said nothing. "I'm sorry," Remy sighed. "This isn't about your dad. This is about mine. I just can't believe he's a murderer." "I won't." Remy shook her head and sighed again. "I'll help Padric capture Aisling, but I'm not going to help him throw my dad in prison." There was a silence as the two kept drinking. Then Remy spoke up. "Hey, Night, you want to go to the baths after we get something to eat?" Nightingale nodded and smiled. The next morning found them feeling much better for all that Padric had promised. Clean, rested, and full, they practically glowed as they made their way downstairs. There were no patrons waiting for them, just plates of hot cakes and Padric himself. The man no longer looked just like an innkeeper. He had a belt of gear along with enough weapons to compete with any of them. "I hope you're ready to give us that information," Rook said when he'd finished his plates and all of his friends' leftovers too. "We're in a hurry." "I'll do you one better." Padric rose, sliding a weapon away into its holster. "I'm coming with you. No offense, but you all don't really have a chance in hell of catching Aisling without me. That and," he nodded respectfully to Nightingale, "Shayless would kill me if I let anything happen to you." "Wait, what?" Nightingale glared at him, bolting upright herself. "You never said you knew my sister." Padric shrugged ruefully. "No. Well, we went to the Institute of Alinea together when we first came to Madara." Nightingale skipped over towards an impressive display case of weapons marked for sale. "So, since you're good friends with my sister, and since you're also adventuring with us, does this mean that you're going to give us weapons for free?" "No, ma'am," Padric said, "but you're welcome to buy as much as you like. I can always use money from the pockets of royalty."